I have the honor to call upon the Minister of Economy from the Jewish Home Party. And the floor is yours if you want to come, Mr. Naftali Bennett. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the organizers.
I appreciate the people that came from far away to join.
I'm sure I see a lot of media. What you're interested is my perceptions on energy. I'm sure that's what you came for. So for the media, I will first of all release you with a declaration regarding the political situation the last few days. Then I'll speak about the topic at hand. In the last few days, we are attacking Europe for the resolution, the bad resolution to recognize unilaterally a Palestinian state. But maybe it's about time that we understand our own failure. Look, the willingness to give territories to the enemy became the entry card to the club of any politician who wants international legitimacy. Because what's bad about it? There's a very simple conduct. The government of Israel will apologize, will say that we are occupier, that it's going too slow, and there you are finding yourself loved, embraced in cocktails in many European countries with people just like you, and you're appreciated, you're enlightened, you're one of the guys. You're all of a sudden you're called a man of peace in many places that never saw you as such. It's absolutely wonderful. Altogether, there's like a political inauguration ceremony. I'm not going to shut up, and I express a position of millions of Israelis. Nobody's going to silence me, and I'm going to continue to say it whether you like it or not. I will continue to say the truth, and I will continue to say the truth that hasn't been said for too many years, and nobody here will shut our mouths. We do not apologize anymore. Altogether, there's like a political ceremony that any national politician has to go through. He has to say in the media that he will be ready to give territory to the Arabs. There isn't one day that I don't get a phone call from a diplomat in the world that says, listen, Bennett, we see that you're a rising power. What do you care? Say that you're in favor of a Palestinian state. You will get such legitimacy. You'll be embraced in 1 minute. And I say loud and clear, I will not give any territory of the state of Israel to the Arabs. We have to stop apologizing to the world. There was never ever here any Palestinian state, and you can hear it again. I can hear you. There was never here any Palestinian state. If it was, show me. Where is its flag? Who were the leaders? Where is its territory? You invented as if we conquered the Palestinian state. Show it to me. Yes, there was a state of Israel. Somebody said here there was no state of Israel. Who said it? So let me tell you. 2,170 years ago, there was a state we celebrated in Hanukkah. There was a sovereign Jewish state in the state of Israel even 3,000 years ago. How can you say such a thing? What? There was no Jewish state here. There was no kingdom of David, the first temple, the second. Stop apologizing. Stop it. If there's anything that the Palestinians did in the last few years is to prove that they don't deserve a state. In murder, terror, and blood, you do not build a state. With missiles and terror tunnels that they dug under our kibbutzim in Gaza, after we already withdrew from Gaza, you cannot build a state. We have to stand like a rock and not to allow the wall to break. When Israel says loud and clear, without apologizing, we do not agree to commit suicide and to have a Palestinian state in the territory of the State of Israel. At the end of the day, the world will understand. And now to the subject at hand. I just want to give you a wider perception of how I see the situation of Israel in this region and also to connect it to energy. 3-4 years ago, the Arab Spring, what is called, started, and it turned very quickly to be a Muslim winter that can remain here for many years. We don't know how many. It can take another 5 years, 50, or maybe 200. The time scopes, the parameters of time in the Middle East are very different than those of the West. And nobody knows. Nobody predicted the fall of Mubarak and the rise of Morsi, or the fall of Morsi and the rise of Sisi. Nobody predicted the collapse of Syria, and there were people who said that within 3 weeks Assad is going to fall, and until now he's standing strong. Nobody saw the rise of ISIS. And therefore, the only thing which is definite is we know nothing. And I learned in the last few years, sitting in the political security cabinet of the State of Israel, that intelligence assessments are best when they do it in hindsight. It's much more difficult to predict ahead. There's some sort of a failure there. You can know what the enemy has, but you don't know what its intentions are. You can analyze trends, but it's very difficult to predict things. And therefore, you can call it a chaotic era, and the State of Israel is now geographically in the heart of a storm, a Muslim storm, which might take many, many years. In my mind, the State of Israel has to be a light tower within this storm. A light tower has two aspects. It has very strong foundations. We have a historic foundation, as I just said, because we had a state, and before that even another first and second temple. And in we are now in the third period of Israel as a sovereign state, and we don't have a fourth one. We cannot miss out. We won't have another opportunity. We also have a strong army. We definitely have to refresh ourselves all the time, to doubt the basic assumptions of the security position of Israel. I saw it during Protective Edge. To what extent we have to challenge ourselves not to accept as self-evident anything. Even big systems like the security system can make mistakes. So eventually doubt and good sense is good. It's a good thing. We have a very strong economy, but it's got faults, but in general it is false. But a lighthouse is not just foundations. A lighthouse has other traits. It radiates light to the environment. That's also the destiny of the State of Israel, to shed light. To radiate light is also in our inner conduct as a state that has to strive to be an exemplary state in its attitude to minorities, the attitude to 1.5 million Arabs in the State of Israel. I, as a Ministry of Economy, I turned every stone in order to connect, especially the women from the Arab sector, to the labor force.
And also in our exports, 50% today of the export of the State of Israel is high-tech. This is the highest percentage of any advanced country in the world. 50% of our export is high-tech. But look, like what kind of high-tech? It's changed a little bit. In the past, we were only talking about internet and applications. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but today we are exporting good things, good to the world in a few areas. The water production, preservation. We are a superpower. I just came back from China and India. In the entire world, we help these people who have no water to produce water. There's a company, it's amazing, a company that has a device, and it's for military forces, but not only. You put this device, if there's any humidity in the air, it creates water from the air. Shall I repeat that? An Israeli company that makes water out of air. Yes, Luftgeschäft in Yiddish. Yes, but real air business. Yeah, Luftgeschäft is air business. He's explaining the Yiddish, the Jewish. Wassergeschäft. Water business. It's an amazing thing. The second thing is food and agriculture. In that visit to China, I visited one of those model farms that we established, the economy ministry. We bring a few companies. This time I think it was 11 companies, Israeli companies, in production of in agriculture. And we are doubling 10 times for the production and the yield in some of their products in China, vegetables like cucumbers and tomatoes, 10 times fold instead of a kilogram of cucumbers per certain square meter of land in Israel, 10 kilos. That's the state of Israel. We're to come to China and to do it, to go to China, to India, to produce 1.8 more the yield of fish, edible fish, eggs, milk. It's amazing. The third area is the life sciences, medications and medical devices. Today, thousands of disabled, paralyzed, quadriplegics continue to walk today with a we-walk device. It's like an external skeleton. They walk because of Israeli technology. Hundreds of thousands of people are walking around with Israeli stents that they get every day to their heart valves. The other area is cybersecurity. And there again, we, the State of Israel, and I'm saying it, we protect the world. My company, my own small company, Sayota, that I established in 1999. Today we have 400 employees in various countries in Israel. I would like them more to be in the south than in the north. 70% of the internet banking problems are solved by this company, and we make sure that it's the right man who logs in and not a hacker. 70%, Citibank, Chase Manhattan, Bank of America, all these are clients. I already don't have any holdings there, so I can tell you all about it. And the last area is energy. Energy has two aspects. If I talk to people who understand a lot more than me, but in the macro level, there's the aspect of actually manufacturing of technologies, especially in renewable energies, but there's another aspect. For the first time, the State of Israel can see in its vision energetic independence for 50 years ahead. It means a lot, because in the current world, the economic perception, we need two things. We need dependent independence. Namely, we must be able, especially in energy, to be independent, and we need an economy with a mutually dependent or interdependent economy. We have to produce dependency vis-a-vis the world. We don't want to be isolated. On the contrary, like in China, in Europe, to diversify the trade channels. People don't know. I'll give you an example. We went up in the exports to Europe, according to the official data, by a lot of percentages. Energetic independence is important to Israel in order to ensure the supply of energy resources, and also making sure that these resources will be local, will neutralize our dependency on foreign countries, especially not those chaotic ones. So how do you do that? Because we are an island of energy, and we cannot accept energy from our direct neighbors. Even with Egypt, it didn't work out. So the state of Israel invests a lot of resources to ensure its energetic independence, but it should do more. And I'm saying here something. There are blocks in the pipeline, barriers, and in this case, the government of Israel is quite responsible for these blocks, and the responsibility is on the government of Israel to open these barriers, these blocks. We have to work much quicker, to be much more aggressive in the balances between the various components. There are a lot of interest, there are a lot of components of environment and whatever, but we have to give higher weight. That people, the penny didn't drop yet. People talk about it, but the penny did not drop. It dropped in talks, but not in deeds. We have to allow the gas to stream, to move. We have to diversify the energy resources, and the gas is going to give us the possibility to produce electricity and then transportation. Also, the alternative fuels plan. We also have to reduce the consumption by streamlining. That's what the entire world is doing, or most of it, because of economic needs and also environmental needs. And in the climate conference of last week in Lima, it was decided that every state is going to commit itself during 2015 to reduce their emissions. Israel in the past gave a promise of a reduction of 20% by 2020. Now we have to promise a new, very ambitious promise from 2020 onwards. Most of the states, including the USA, are doing it through the energetic streamlining, which gives an edge to the economy and also creates a healthier environment. And to invest in renewable energies, solar, thermic. We, in the bottom line, we must put it as a national target, because things fell between the cracks and the ministries because of over-cautiousness, because of over-regulation. And I will conclude with the last point, and that is regarding the practical side of regulation. Because since Remedia and the big, terrible disaster with the baby food, a bad process happened in regulation. There was a complete asymmetry, extreme one, for the single regulator. In my Ministry of Economy, I have a guy who is responsible on standardization in the State of Israel. His name is Grisha Deutsch. When I came to the ministry, he is the regulator. He's not the standard institution. That checks if you live up to the standards, but he decides what the standards is. In many hundreds of products, what is the standard for the bottles and for the whatever, the carts, anything. When I came to the ministry, I started asking questions, and I found out that in the State of Israel, a large part or most of the standards have specific and different things than the rest of the world. I'll give you an example. baby pacifiers. There's an European standard, so you can think that Switzerland, France, Belgium also care about their babies, and maybe they do things even better than Israel, and nevertheless, the pacifiers in Israel have to be more sustainable, more resilient. Why? I don't know, maybe the Israeli babies are more nervous. Maybe after the dialogue we just had, I can believe that, maybe they... how about faucets, taps? There's a special standard for faucets at other places, something that has to have with odor. So there's a person in the Standard Institute that has to smell. Why? Because. Now it's funny, but it's really sad. And you'll get the point to the gas. What does it mean? If we cannot bring pacifiers for babies that are produced by serious companies in Israel, there's less supply. Somebody makes a lot of money on it, and then we go, the price goes high. Same for faucets, and I'll give you another example from health. Only in Israel, for one Fanta can, you can check me later, you won't find a picture of an orange. All over the world there is, but in Israel, no, there's a regulation that says in order to not mislead the public, that they'll think that there are squeezed oranges in the Fanta, you cannot deceive them, and if it's only 10% of real fruit, you cannot put the picture. Okay, sounds good, we're transparent. But what happens? You're an importer in Israel, you go in Europe, all of a sudden you see 4 containers of Fanta very cheap, you can bring them to Israel and to reduce prices, but you can't do it. Why? Because there's a picture of an orange on it. And so it goes in each of the standards. We adopted the European standard, but there's something little small that is called national deviation. Very interesting phrase. But the national deviation is a deviation just a tiny bit from the international standard, but that's huge because it's a block, it's a barrier. The same thing we have at the moment in the energy system. When I think about this guy, Grisha Deutsch, and I say, just a minute, if God forbid, because of the fact that he doesn't put a standard to smell, in another 5 years there'll be poisoning in one faucet, he goes to prison. He's finished. So he has a great interest to be more severe and more severe. If he alleviates things, is there anybody here who says, look, this Grisha Deutsch, he found a gun, but indirectly he created another competition and finally he reduced it? No, nobody's there. There's complete asymmetry of the regulators. That's the problem. And therefore, what I did when I entered office, I became Grisha Deutsch's best friend. I go to his office every week. Now, I tell you, Grisha is a wonderful man. He came with me. He went along and he understood. And all of a sudden, we started to scan. We canceled 15% of all the official standards in Israel, deleted them from the standardization book. But it's only 15. And we go, we scan all the others. If there's national deviation, we'll need a very good reason. If we have more nervous babies, that's not enough reason. And therefore, this same process we did in the Ministry of Economy, we have to do in energy and to start taking responsibility on risks, but also to understand that if there we'll hate risks altogether, then we can shut off the gas, and unless we have gas in Israel, we can ensure that no gas container will ever explode. But if you want Israel to reach energetic independence and fantastic income, which is a national event from the first degree, we have to take responsibility. Thank you very much.